Keeping in mind that this week is all about substitution and that the week is almost over, it means that we are wrapping up our substitution lessons. What I want to do before we leave this behind in our review portion for your test, because remember you are going to have all the stuff from chapter 5 plus these next 2 weeks of information on your test. So again, before we do that, I want to make sure we can deal with fractions. So this lesson does include work on distributing and simplifying substitution problems that involve fractions. So let's just review the skill that you're going to need before we move on. So again, kind of like with the box and switch, we know we have to distribute. And again, most of you do not like fractions, I understand, but what I want to show you is that if the calculator is in front of you and we have the ability to translate all these numbers between on our calculator, we should be good. So for example, we know we have to do 15 times 3x, so I would just type in 15 times 3, which is 45, so that's going to be 45x. And then I have to do 15 times 5/3, which, as I showed you before, as long as you put the fraction into the parentheses, this is your 15 times 5/3, and you end up with the answer of 25, which gives you a nice, simple, easy answer. So again, in long form, you take 15 times 5 because you send it to the top. But again, as long as you have your calculator and as long as you're able to program it, you should be okay getting there. And most of the problems that we have today, the fractions work out. So again, as long as you know how to program your calculator, you should be all right. In simplify, this is where we're going to actually take that fraction and then put more together. So what we have here is that the 3x comes down, that 8 makes 2x and makes 16x. And then 8 multiplies by 5/4, which again I don't know that off the top of my head, so 8 times parentheses 5/4 gives me a nice answer of 10. And now it's a basic question again. Put your x's together, getting 19x plus 10, and that's as far as we can go. Alright. And then the biggest step that we're going to have on this is looking like this. So again, putting all this together, we see that y is all by itself, so we put a box around it, we put a box around what it's equal to, and we put a box around the other y. We then write out 2x plus 6 because that's what's in front of the box. We trade out 5x plus 4 over 3 because that's what's in it, and then we put equals 11, and now you notice that everything we need is here. So we now distribute my 6, so we end up with 2x plus, that makes 30x. And then 6 times 4/3, so again 6 times parentheses 4/3. Make sure you can see that for yourself. I'd say type some of these in for yourself to make sure they work. And I end up with 8 equals 11. And then of course I put my like terms together to get 32x plus 8 equals 11. The 3 dots mean we know what to do from there, which is to subtract the 8, divide by 32. But again, this just said substitute and simplify, just to show you that we can take a problem with a fraction, work it out using our calculator, and it still ends up being very doable. So notice again, we did everything to the point of solving. This is because those problems were only meant to practice the most important new skills. Today what we're going to do is substitute and actually find the value of x, and then we'll work on finding x, or using x to find y. So in the end, we'll do the whole process without any kind of prompts or directions, hopefully, and you'll be able to knock all that out. So again, one of the things you're going to see on today's work is going to say substitute to find x. I do want, in this case, decimal and fraction form, but I'm sure the book is going to tell you, or the computer is going to tell you whenever you get there. So again, in this situation, we have y and x equals 1, or sorry, x plus 1/2, and again, you have a y up there. So we substitute what we have in front of the box, which is 4x plus 6. We open our parentheses and substitute x plus 1/2. And then we put our equals 18. Now we distribute. 4x comes down. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 1/2, well, we know that 6 halves is 3, but just to make sure, 6 times 1/2 equals, and notice that that comes out as a 3. And again, notice that the fraction went away. We simplify by putting 10x plus 3 equals 18. And then we work this out, so minus 3 minus 3. So 10x equals 15, then you divide by 10. And I don't think 15 goes evenly into 10, or 10 goes evenly into 15, but you notice you get the answer of 1.5, which which is the decimal version, and then we hit math, enter, enter to get 3/2. And so both of those answers, depending on what they ask for, if they ask for a decimal, you give them that. If they ask for a simplified fraction, that's what they're looking for there. So make sure you read the parentheses on the computer just to make sure you know what they're asking for that particular problem. But again, notice that the fraction really doesn't even come into play, especially once you use your calculator. Just turn it into a whole number. So the whole point of this lesson is just to make sure you get used to seeing those fractions so you don't allow them to intimidate you into stopping. Once again, fraction here, which initially makes you think it's tough, just follow your instincts and do what you know you've been taught to do, which is first set up the boxes and then write everything in front of the box. 6x plus 4, swap it out for x minus 3/2, and then equals 19. 6x comes down, 4x comes down. We don't know what 4 times 3/2 is, but again, we have calculators, so 4 times parentheses 3/2, which is 6. And remember, that's going to be minus 6 because that's positive times a negative. And now notice that the problem gets very easy because all our numbers are just basic numbers. Plus 6, plus 6. 10x equals 25. Divide by 10. 25 divided by 10 is 2.5. And again, that is the decimal version, and to turn that into a fraction, I simply hit math, enter, enter to end up with 5/2. And that is all. Again, think about what you think, what we initially thought when we saw the problem, which is that this fraction is going to make it tough. All we had to do was follow our instincts, and once we distributed that 4, the fraction went away and everything was just as we needed it to be. The second thing it's going to ask you to do today is to find y given a value of x. So pretty much what happens is it's saying that you pretty much solved like we did here, and we found the value of x. And what we understand is that once we find this x, we're supposed to plug it in. So what this next set is doing is it's saying, I'm not going to make you do all this work. I'm just going to tell you what the answer is. Take this answer and plug it into one of these two parts here. So again, what this is saying is assume you solved this using box and switch to find x equals 1.5. So all you have to do is take this 1.5 and plug it into one of these two equations. What we saw yesterday was that it's easiest to plug x into the equation where the variable is by itself, which is here. Now you can plug it in here, but it's easier to plug it in here. I'll show you the difference. Here I'm going to go ahead and use it here. So 2 parentheses 1.5 plus 4y equals 15. By the way, I got that from here. 2x plus 4y equals 15. I turn my x into 1.5. 2 times 1.5 is 3. I then have to subtract 3. I bring down 4y equals 12. I then have to divide by 4 to get y equals 3. That is if I choose the equation that doesn't have the variable alone. Now look how much work it is over here. If I take my y equals x plus 3/2 and I turn that into y equals 1.5 plus 3/2 and I type in 1.5 plus 3/2, my answer comes out immediately. So the advice I have for you is if you're ever solving one of those and you get one of those x's like that, to always plug it into the variable that you would have the box for. So there's your y by itself. Take it and plug it into that one. It is a lot easier. You notice that both of these answers actually worked out because it's the same answer on both of them. So that's why it doesn't matter which one you pick, which is why it's smart to pick the one that is easiest to get the answer for. So looking at B again, it says assume you solved. So we already did a whole bunch of work and we found out that x is 2.5. Now we want to know what y is. Again, the easiest one to plug into is the one where y is by itself. So I'm going to use this one, and then I'm going to turn that into 2.5 minus 3/2, and again all I got to do is 2.5 minus, and exactly the way I see it, 3/2. We've been practicing doing that. You get the answer of 1, and that is the answer that we would be looking for. Really not that tough. Again, it's just something where you have to make sure that you are aware that this is the easier one to plug in for. If you plug it up there, you'll still get the same answer, but it's just so much easier if you just choose the variable or the equation with the variable all by itself. And then let's wrap this up by looking at one of these ugly problems and going all the way through like we had to do yesterday. So y equals, and y is the same as x plus 3 halves. Putting the other y in the box, we write everything in front of the box, which is 2x plus 8 parentheses x plus 3 halves, and then equals 17. We bring down our 2x, we distribute our 8, so 8x plus 8 times 3 halves ends up being 12. Again, notice now the fraction is gone and everything is good. We then put these two things together, so that becomes 10x plus 12 equals 17. Using the algebra that we have, we know we're supposed to use the opposite of that number to move it, so 10x equals 5. Dividing by 10 to get rid of that, you end up with x equals 1/2. So 5 divided by 10 is 0.5 or 1/2. Either one works. Now you want y, and again, what you have to do to find y is you take this thing here, and the easiest one to plug it in for is the original one with the variable by itself. Doesn't matter which one you pick, just for fun, let's go ahead and do the 1/2. So y equals 1/2 plus 3 halves. And again, we know how to type this in. We've been working on programming our calculators all year. Parentheses for your 1/2 plus parentheses for your 3 halves equals the answer of 2. And that's all it takes. So on your Math Excel, you have some questions there. You got some stuff from the days before. Just make sure that you are working on something today to try to get better. Some of you I will probably ask to meet with me at the board or something, but like I said, it's not a punishment. It's just to make sure that we get a chance to look at some of the mistakes that I saw on the assessment that I gave before you left yesterday. Other than that, go ahead and go to Math Excel and let's get started. Don't forget you have a quiz tomorrow on all this stuff. Good luck.